Welcome. This is a video where we're going to export some backtest data from Equities Lab. We're going to start again at the basic stock screener page, and I'm just going to add a few very basic screening criteria. I'm going to add the 0 less than PE less than 10. I'm going to add my restrictions, and the good news is that I've actually saved my restrictions, so I can load them up by hitting Control-Shift-F. Alright, there it is. These are all my restrictions. I'm just going to add them here. And maybe I'll pick some winners. I'm going to pick stocks that have gone up more than 25% in the last year. Okay, so when I hit go, we'll see what stocks are returned by the screen. Okay, it's not that much, and I'll just set the rebalance to be a more reasonable quarterly, and I'll go ahead and run a 10-year backtest. So while it runs, I'm going to talk to you briefly about what we can do with the exported data. Once we export the data into Excel, we can then do any number of computations that we want with it. In particular, we can compute things like the standard deviation of returns, or alphas, or anything that we want to do that we can do in Excel. So it's really a very versatile option to have available. The downside, of course, is that it takes a little bit of work to get that functionality in there. Okay, so these are the returns. So you'll notice that there's this one patch here where it looks like nothing gets through the screen, and there's a flat line indicating cash result. Otherwise, it's a screen that does pretty well. So if you click on backtest table, this is the raw data that that graph is based on. And when you hit export, you can choose wherever you want to export the data into. In this case, I'm just going to put it into, let's say, my basic Dropbox folder, my root. I'm just going to call it export 1, and it's finished exporting. And now I'm just going to pull up my Excel, and I'm going to go there to my Dropbox root folder, and hopefully it should be right there. Okay, so this is exactly what we saw in this screen here. 0, 1.11, 0, negative 0.97, and again, those are the same numbers that we see here. However, you're going to see one little thing here is that each of these little boxes has a green triangle next to it, and if you click or hover over this box, it says the number in this cell is formatted as text or preceded by an apostrophe. So this is a default export functionality. So in order to fix that, we've got to select all of this data, and once you've selected all that data, you got to go back to that little box, and right next to it there's this little down arrow. Just click on that down arrow and say convert to number. And it'll take a little bit of time to do that, and once it's done, everything will be a number that you can use. Okay. So now we have the underlying data for the backtest charts. This by itself is quite useful. However, to really get the full range of tractability, you'll want to get the daily returns from here. So in particular, what you might want to do is compute, first of all, what $100 in the screener in the S&P would have grown to. So in particular, in this case, it's just going to be 100. Here, it's going to be 100 plus whatever this number is, divided by 100. So you'll notice that all these numbers over here are actually in percentage, not in decimals. So you'll divide that by 100. Similarly, for the S&P, you can start with 100 here. And if you just double click that, you'll see, did I do that right? No, that did not do that right. I think those are in percentages, so obviously for $100 it would be in dollar terms. So a 1% return on 100 would be 101 and 11 cents. So I kind of goofed there. That's all right. Can do the same thing here. And if you select this and just double click on this little black square at the lower right corner, it just fills that in, and hopefully the ending values should be lined up with what you see in the backtest chart, which they are. So now you have what $100 grows to, and then you can compute the daily returns. So the daily return for the screener would be this divided by that minus 1. So of course on the first day it exactly matches whatever happened then. Now the second day it's going to be very different because the screener went from being up 1.11% to being down 1.13%. So that's a fall of close to 2.3%, 2.2%. So that's what you see there. And similarly, we can fill it in for the S&P. Excel very cleverly determines which cells are to be divided. And again, if you double click on this little box, it just fills in all of these cells. So that's for the screener, and that's for the S&P. I'm just, for prettiness, going to convert all of this to a percentage number. And we'll just get the average return. So the average daily return was 8 basis points, and the average daily return for the S&P was 4 basis points. So that's how you export data to Excel and how you can do some very simple analysis using that data. Enjoy the functionality that Excel gives you to analyze these backtest returns. And I'll talk to you again shortly about how to use these backtested returns to compute alpha.